And
Good morning, everyone. Today's Monday, July 25th, 2022. Time is precisely 9 a.m. We have a special meeting agenda for our airport, and attending are Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none? Okay, so I am officially calling the meeting to order. First business item is a review of the July 22 Advisory Board minutes, general discussion. Stephen, will you be leading us, or Greg?
I'll take part of it.
Go right
if that's
ahead,
okay,
Greg.
Stephen.
Sounds good.
Okay, the first thing we discussed was an exception to the minimum standards for D-zone skydiving. They had asked for an exception, and what we came back with is they will give them an exception this year for 2 weekends because they aren't meeting all the minimum standards, which would be a building, et cetera, et cetera. So the board moved to let D-Zone run 2 weekends, July 28th through 31st and September 1st through 4th. And that's where we're at with that. The second thing was the airport lease development with Luxury International and the discussion about the possibility of leasing some acreage to build mini storages on. And after a bunch of discussion, the board came away with the airport could always use money, and if it looks like a good deal, take it back to the county commissioners as well as through county legal and see if it's something they want to move forward with. Is that correct assumption, board? As I recall?
yes,
And with that, I will let, then we also had a discussion with Scott Keller. He wanted to lease 8 acres, approximately 8 acres next to the gun club, and put some storage, fuel storage facilities in, and you have all that in your packet of the tanks and things. We had a presentation from the individual that spoke to the fuel tanks and how they're portable and how they're environmentally good. I mean, they aren't an environmental risk. With that, Stephen, it's been a long, hot weekend. You're good to go.
Start off, we had our Air Expo Saturday and Sunday. We had a little over 5,000 people through on between both days, so it's actually about 600 more than we had previously. Unfortunately, the B-17 was broken the entire weekend. They had to replace 2 cylinders on the B-17 on the number 4 engine, so they were extremely disappointed that they had actually pretty much every single flight booked out on that aircraft the entire time. They were like add flights for the B-25, but they were extremely disappointed because it was a significant revenue hit for them. We also had an Allegiant air charter coming in. It's actually on the ground right now. It's just a charter operation. It had 92 passengers on it when it came in. Hopefully we'll have 92 passengers back going out. And it was came in last Thursday. Was supported by us through ARF, and then also Stancraft. So it was definitely something. It wasn't we've actually had a little bit larger aircraft coming in lately. There's a 737 that's been flying in quite a bit recently as well. Other projects that we've got going on, D North is in closeout, 624 decoupling design phase improvements. We're moving in through those processes right now. Actually, that 624 Rehab is actually going to be, we're still working through that process right now at the FAA. It's going to be an interesting conversation. We're actually having to have another meeting here with the FAA here shortly because they're having some stating they're having funding difficulties to cover the cost because everything else has gone up. When we originally priced out this project, paving was not $200 a ton, and right now it is. It was about $100 a ton. So basically, the cost is doubled for a rehab project.
Over what period of time?
2 years.
I'm sorry?
2 years.
2 years? Okay.
So we're trying to determine how we're going to go best about doing this. Right now, the cost estimate for the rehab project is $3.5 million. The FAA has $2 million. We are looking at how to solve that project, whether we break it into pieces. The problem is if we break it into phases, into all of our CIP starts rippling down. So we're actually gonna be redoing our CIP here this week to try to figure that out. So I don't have a good answer to this one right now, because they just told us this last Thursday, and we don't have a good answer yet. For C, the taxway Charlie, this has the ripple effect. We were actually begun some scoping work because the FAA is pushing the Mauser, which is a lighting system. They were actually pushing us to get that started, some of the design work, because they have a safety problem. We don't, because it's their lighting system. So we're actually rolling that into our project, but because they actually, it was the issue is we technically don't have to solve this problem, but if we don't solve the problem in the timeline, because no one wants to take ownership of it in the FAA. So we either have to solve the problem, or they're gonna force us to either the safety branch will probably force us to do something to it while dealing with the other sides of the FAA, which is tech ops, it's their lighting system, it's not ours. They don't view it as a safety risk. Safety does. The safety branch of the FAA does. This is where it gets always fun to deal with the FAA. TO and myself have sat in on calls where there has been no less than 15 FAA people arguing with each other about how to deal with it.
Okay.
We've proposed multiple options to them, but none of them met their specs, and the best way we can come up with is that we roll this into our project. We'll get reimbursed for it, mostly. We do get slated, right now our Mausers are actually slated to be replaced in 2028, which was actually the first time I'd heard that in this meeting, so. It's a very interesting project that we're trying to move forward with. They have submitted a reimbursable agreement to us. So a reimbursable agreement is an agreement between us and the FAA. It's a very interesting thing with the FAA. A reimbursable agreement states that we hand them money, and then we will get reimbursed from the FAA at a later date. However, I'm refusing to even bring this forward until they can tell me when a project's gonna happen. So we have the document, we're starting to review it, but I'm not even gonna carry it forward until such time that they can tell me when we're gonna do this project, so. So that's all on taxway C, our Charlie and Foxtrot extension and Mauser relocation. Gulfstream Road and Utility, we do have a task order change order, 2 of them technically here today that we are starting. We are pretty well along on that. Infinite Apron, we're having some changes and things going on, but we may have the ability to bid that here this fall. Snow removal, obviously, we just did that recently. And that's about it for that. Sewer inventory, I got the draft report last week. I have not had a chance to review it completely. We did find 2 problem spots, though, that we'll have to address. One spot is, it looks like the seal on 2 pipe locations has either wasn't installed properly, has just come out, something happened to it. We'll have to I need to clarify exactly where it is, but we're probably gonna have to excavate. Looks like one's in dirt, one possibly is in asphalt. Nothing in FAA spec, but we'll have to excavate, repair, and replace piping locations there. Another is a manhole. It looks like it's at the end of a line. It's something happened to it. We don't know what exactly yet. A manhole has either failed, something's occurred to it. We're not sure yet. So, we're unable to even see the manhole from the pipe, nor can we even see it from above. So, I'm not sure. We're afraid to take the lid off until we can have professional group come in to take care of it.
Okay.
ATC planning, we put that on pause, and we're gonna be picking that up again soon, due to how bad our spring was, due to weather-wise. Our traffic counts have definitely picked up. Actually, we've just had a FAA temporary tower go active yesterday. However, due to staffing issues, they're only going active for 10 hours a day. So we are not the only ones with staffing issues. The FAA has significant staffing issues too.
Is it daylight hours?
7 to 7?
No,
Oh,
it's
10.
10 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay.
It's an interesting time frame, but that's kind of what the Forest Service requested. If that was they could only staff for 10 hours.
Okay.
There was a couple of public comments as well made by Steve Anderson about the first lease for the storage units, as well as another comments about from Mr. Inkowski about the AWAS system and the prox card system. Also, Joe Rossetti made some comments about when we were going to send out invoicing for the landing fees.
Okay.
Questions for Stephen?
Yeah, a couple of them. The advisory board, reading through the notes and stuff, weren't exactly understanding what their role was. The third iteration of the lease, when was that provided to them before the meeting?
So we gave them the changes of the lease in the meeting. We didn't provide the entire lease. I believe I asked Greg whether he wanted it or not, and didn't seem that anybody was interested in it, because.
That's correct. I mean, I thought the rest of the lease was a template lease. The only changes were the charging, the lease fee. And the term was really 50 years instead of the 25, as I recall.
Okay, so I guess I'm concerned about that. Were you provided the letter from Representative Okonowitz?
Yes.
Yes, at the meeting. Yeah, yes, we were.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess for me, my questions still have not been answered, and the fact that you didn't see the actual lease before you guys voted on, whether we were to continue this project is concerning. I read through it several times, the changes, and there's ambiguous and non-specific parts in it. And so, did legal review the third iteration?
We sent it to legal, yes.
Okay, but have they reviewed it?
As far as I'm aware, yes. I haven't been the one to send
Go
it.
ahead.
Okay.
I think regarding the why the board didn't look at the entire lease was, as Greg said, it was template, so we just focused on the changes. And my understanding, my recollection from the meeting was pretty much the board members were comfortable with what those changes were, given the benefit to the airport. So we were pretty comfortable with the changes.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess I was hoping that the advisory board would have done a little bit more digging in, because we're about to give a 50-year lease to somebody who we don't know whose the succession plan is. We don't have the operating agreement from the LLC. The LLC is only 3 years old, so there's, I guess, still a lot of questions that just didn't get answered. So, I mean, I think that a storage unit project is a good idea, but I think the way this is written, I have some deep concerns about it, and they haven't been answered. And looking at the new way Section 6 is written, like I said, there's ambiguous things in there, and it's still very problematic to me. So I'm not sure really where to go from here. I mean, I guess we're kind of getting into item number 2, so I don't know if you have any more questions for item 1.
No, I don't. Go right ahead, Greg.
Okay, so the way I looked at it, and I believe some members of the board looked at it, was that even if this project is an epic fail, if they don't perform like they said they would, the lease rate goes to market rate, and they have to pay the market rate. So you may end up with a gravel parking lot and a fence, and that's it, and the project fails. That reverts to the airport, or they pay you the 57 cents a square foot. And so it's like, what's our risk factor here? Yeah, there's a risk that the project may fail. It may be wildly successful, which brings more money to the airport. But I don't see, the only thing that I think we question is that the market rate, it's a different rate because it's a profit sharing thing down the road. But my personal opinion is I don't see a lot of risk if the project fails, it fails, the airport gets everything back plus any improvements they made. Is that the way? Yeah, so it's like, I mean, we got people that are building hangars out there and we don't really delve into their business that much. We trust that they'll be able to build a hangar or start within a year and build a hangar. And if that fails, we get the lease back too.
Right.
And the
Well,
building.
I just look at it differently than hangar options because we have 30-something people on hangar
Right.
waiting lists.
Right.
And so it's a different thing. And, okay, we get all the infrastructure, but then what do we do with the infrastructure? Do we tear it out? I mean, it could be an expense to the county. So there's just some concerns that I have going forward. And I'm really interested in what legal has to say about the new iteration of the lease because there are things that make reference, but yet you can't tell if they're talking about 1 acre or 5 acres, or there's just really some non-specific language in here that I think needs to be addressed before we go on with it. And I guess I just wanted a little bit more from the advisory board rather than just, yeah, okay, this looks great.
Well, and not to kick the can or not, well, I guess where we're at is, we didn't feel that we had the resources to totally investigate this either.
Sure.
And it's really an issue we thought that would be the end decision would be with the county commissioners. And the contract would be with Kootenai County Legal.
Yeah.
And for the advisory board to delve into all that, it's like, that's not in our wheelhouse right now anyway, unless we don't have the resources.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Bill, do you have any thoughts?
I think the advisory board has done a great job looking at this thing, and as the old tired term is used, the due diligence has been done.
Stephen, where's legal?
They've reviewed every iteration. I just asked my staff, I sent them a text asking if legal's reviewed this newest iteration. As far as I know they have, it's been submitted to them. I believe it's on tomorrow's meeting, in fact, so I believe they have. So,
Okay. So basically, last Friday, I spoke with Brett Boyer because I thought, well, let me speak with the one dissenting voice. And I asked Brett, I said what his concern was, and he said he didn't really have a concern with the substance. His concern was, what did we want? I can't answer that because I want where the market takes us. And that's the simple answer. And if the market is taking us in a certain direction, then that's where essentially we go. Now, if the board is comfortable with it, with a 6-1 vote, and after having spoken with Brett, I don't really have an issue. Now, having said that, I really want a final determination from legal, and if they're prepared to give that tomorrow, that's fine. But if they're not, we're going to have to defer.
So you mentioned taking us where the market goes. Since there were 2 applications for this same project, then I would say let's go out RFP. Let's go a request for proposal for a business entity for these 20 acres and see if maybe we can get somebody who's going to pay market rent instead of a revenue sharing venture.
When we approved, help me out, Stancraft,
we've never gone out for
we
an
never
RFP
went out with an RFP. Stephen suggested it, the board decided against it. So I don't know that unless legal requires us to do that, why?
Okay.
We have someone who's taken the initiative who wants to do something, why go out with an RFP?
Well, because we had 2 people interested in it. And
the other?
Stephen made the decision that this was a better deal than the other one.
We actually shifted, that's Scott Keller. We actually shifted him to the 8 acres. He's okay with the location. The other presentation that was done on the advisory board, we actually shifted him down to that 8 acre location.
To do
to do.
A different project.
Yeah, he's a different project. He wanted to do something similar to this in that 20 acres as well as storage units. The north 4 acres in this, they're talking some sort of storage facility of some sort. I'm not exactly clear what yet. But what their original conversations was something very similar to this, what they're proposed.
Joan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess my comment is that we have a piece of ground that someone is willing to develop basically at their own cost and allow revenue sharing. And when you market a piece of ground in real estate, whoever steps forward is usually usually the one you work with first, and then if that doesn't work out, you wait for another person to come in. So I'm not sure I completely understand why we're worried about going out to, with an RFP.
Well, it's a revenue sharing thing. It's not a regular, it's a different animal completely. And our success depends on their success. And so to me, due diligence would be finding out the financing, finding out the involved parties, because our success is directly tied to theirs. A hangar's different. They don't succeed, we have, let's go down the list. Who wants this hangar? And the amount stays the same. So that to me is where the difference lies, is it's a revenue sharing proposition. And so did you have a chance to read Representative Okonowitz's email?
Not yet. Not
Okay.
yet. I
Yeah.
read his last one.
Yeah, so, I suggest that we read the one that we got last night.
Go ahead, Greg.
There was a second letter from him?
Yep, last night. It came in late, 11 o'clock. So I can forward that to the information. But there's a lot of his concerns I share as well. And so I'm not the only one who is pointing these things out.
Greg, did you want to say something?
No.
No, I appreciate what you guys did, and I understand, the limits that you guys
Did
have.
he send it to me because I don't have it? Were we all oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Stephen, why 50 years?
So all of our leases are 50 years technically. They just have an option that, based upon legal's comments, we actually can't terminate. So we've asked this. This was actually a trade-off between not getting rid of the option and automatic reversion clause. So that was the trade-off point.
So I don't necessarily have a problem with the 50-year lease if we have those questions that I have answered, because there is going to have to be a succession plan. I mean, I don't think anybody here in this room is going to be here in 50 years. So it would be nice to have,
My comment
Those
about
things.
that is we've never required a single succession plan for anyone on the airport. So we are specifically requiring it for somebody else. We've never required it for Stancraft, never required it for Resort, never required it for Southfield, any business on the field.
and once again,
Requiring it for this one.
sure, and once again, since it's revenue sharing and it's non-aeronautical, so aeronautical I can understand. It's going to stay there, it's going to stay in use. This is non-aeronautical and it's revenue sharing. It's actually, we'll go ahead and forward the email from Representative Okonowitz, because he points out some good,
I'll look at it later.
yeah.
Okay, Bill, do you have any thoughts?
I think we can kill this thing by nitpicking, and I think we're beginning to do a very good job of that.
Okay, so it's marked as discussion, so tomorrow it's on the business meeting. Presumably that's an action item, is that correct, Stephen?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we get to vote, I'll digest this and make some determinations for myself. But other than that, let's leave it on the business meeting, and then it gets an up or down vote tomorrow. So does anyone else on the advisory board have anything to add? Okay, then. We kind of slipped into item number 2, but, okay, let's move on to item number 3. Change orders for Gulfstream Road Utility Project, general discussion. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, so we have two change orders. One is with La Riviera, one is with TO. Paul Laska Riviera, La Riviera is here. This change order is due to the cost. It's kind of a force majeure change order due to the cost of materials have just gone up from the time that this project was supposed to be gone to the time that they've actually been able to do the work. And that is due to the fact that it's things outside of their control, such as ordering the pipe. So it's a total cost of $15,288.28. It's basically for aggregate, ballast, a pavement mix, and a water connection point, if I remember correctly. And it's a coupler that we need. There is one other point that we're having a conversation with who should pay for a coupler for a stick of water line we don't need, but the Avondale does, so that's another item. But it's a change order. It's whether it's up to the board, kind of like we did last time on what you want to do. It is a recommendation from both myself and TO that this was approved because this is something they can't control due to the outside of their control because the pipe took so long to get delivered. They ordered it. They did order the pipe as quick as possible. If you have questions, Paul is here with La Riviere. So.
Where does this fall in budget? Was there contingency budgeted, or is this all on the county, or is it FAA? What?
We can.
Well, no, I'm sorry, this is just the county project
Just the county.
alone.
We can resubmit this back out to we can re-up our, we did leave some wiggle room in our leases, so we can resend a new invoice out to our tenants for the increased costs.
Okay. Corey, did you have anything?
Yeah, go
to
ahead.
add? Yeah.
Okay, so this price is from the paving supplier to La Riviera, and their contract, because it went over the year, the price of oil and gas and that sort of thing to create the aggregate has gone up, plus the cost of the asphalt has gone up from last year I think bid date was maybe July of 2021 to now, July of 2022. And La Riviera, as trying to be a team player, has not marked up. So usually the prime marks up the subs costs. He is just doing a pass-through because he wants to get it paved and complete.
Okay.
I would support this change order. I think it's very justifiable, but.
Okay. So, Stephen, in the leases, and it talks about how much they owe, is there any provision that says if it costs more, you owe more?
So we did do some provisions in there that stated if we had a rebid or there's price adjustments, we could charge more.
Okay. And so how many people are going to share this 15,000?
It'd be all of them.
How many?
It's 6,
6.
so it'd be $2,000.
And the budgeted amount was what, 8?
Total cost was 1.24
It's on this one.
million.
It's on this
Oh,
one.
on that one, okay, go ahead.
That's less some cost of that Avondale Water is picking up, which is about 108,000 for their increased pipe size. This is just the roadway cost, though.
Okay, just for my edification, the $8,000 of TO engineering,
That's
that's
a
their,
separate item.
that's a separate item, is it
Separate
part
item.
of the separate?
Separate item.
Okay, go ahead.
Same project, separate
Same
item.
project, okay, that's where I'm coming from, okay. Okay, what did you have budgeted for this?
We had 1.24, but keep in mind it was the cost that we're getting paid
Previous
back.
contract total, okay, so we're looking at 16,000 more.
Yeah, and we'll send this out as an amendment to get to basically the tenants and say this was due to price increases, this is basically an additional charge, and here's your additional charge.
Over 6 people?
Yep.
Okay,
It's on tomorrow's business meeting.
all right, I guess we'll handle it then, okay.
That's just an update, so you're aware of it. The TO one is something similar. Because the pipe has been so hit or miss, we've started work before La Riviera had all the the items. TO, and it's actually, the project is taking longer due to that item. There's 2 options we can do here. We can either pay TO to do construction observation, or we can not have anybody doing construction observation, which we typically do not like to do as the owner because we cannot guarantee that the project will get done right. I'm not saying that they wouldn't do it right, I'm just saying that as the owner, we don't like to do that. Because the engineer signs off on items. So there is a memo from TO, that's that other item that's on your desk, on the desk, that if, my recommendation is that we do approve that, because if we don't, it could be very concerning as the airport about what happens.
So if La Riviera is doing the work,
Yes.
they've done work for us on various projects in the past, why would they need oversight?
Because we ensure that it meets spec, it meets code, everything that happens all the time is you have construction oversight to ensure that the project was done and accomplished to
Okay,
the
but
specs.
when they've done other projects for us, be it at the transit center or whatever, don't they have an individual within their organization doing that?
Typically, I guarantee the county has someone providing oversight for them,
Okay.
whether it's an engineer or the county, someone.
Question, Corey. $666 a day? Is that,
So it's, we've been doing minimal construction oversight, where we have one person, like a junior engineer, that goes out for 2 to 3 hours a day. She writes her reports, kind of documents how far, and then with that, we'll do the as-built, because this project has water and sewer. We have to file water and sewer as-built to DEQ at the end. And then we also help with the pay requests and project scheduling and just making sure that everything's going along. There's all questions that the contractor has that we have to answer, like on a daily basis for, different pieces and parts, things like that, so.
okay.
Okay. So this is on tomorrow's meeting as well?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's move on to item 4, future projects.
So you had mentioned a couple different times about, we have a lot going on, and airport projects in general take a little bit more time to process. And so I just wanted to have the discussion about a couple different things coming forward. And I would say that all the projects that are in the queue right now, obviously finish those. But things like the North Side Development request for proposal, I would like to put that off until the beginning of the year. And then a commercial service as well, I'd like to put that off till the beginning of the year, especially in light of the 624 rehab issues. And so I just wanted to have a discussion about those two things, and because I think those things are going to require a lot of energy, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Stephen, you want to comment on that? Are any of these pressing?
So RFQ is, I haven't had enough time to write it, I've been too busy doing other stuff.
And that's for the North Side Development.
Commercial service is whoever comes forward to do the projects,
Have you been approached?
yes.
How imminent?
Could be as quick as 6 months to a year.
Okay, so is there any issue if we put this off until January?
The question becomes if people are coming in with funding and availability to do all cost developments and it's a lease agreement, what's the issue on our side?
What would we be investing?
I believe nothing, other than some staff time.
Well, and actually additional staff, additional security fencing, and little things like that that will come in as a result of commercial service.
Well, if you're not taking an initiative here, I'm fine with that. But if you're being approached, I don't think it's a problem. If he brings it to us, he can always bring it to us, and we can simply say, okay, this is not something we're going to address at this time. And I don't know if you're at that point.
Not at this point, but it may happen tomorrow, it may happen in 6 months, I have no idea.
Fair enough. Bill?
I think that's fair. I think we have to be able to and be ready to move on opportunities or lose them.
Okay. So I would say, I don't think you should be, to Leslie's point, taking the initiative. If you're approached, and if it looks like something that's pressing, you can bring it to us. But there's quite a bit on the plate, and I think that's one of the concerns. But over time and in the long run, it's probably is something that we're going to have to undertake. I don't know that we're going to have, well, you can always have a choice, but I think that may be where the market's taking us. Okay, let's move on to the fifth item, pre-treatment harbs.
Yes, so the last HARBS meeting, the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board meeting was very active. And so I wanted to bring a couple things to Stevens and our attention. Pre-treatment, they're having some chemical issues, people dumping stuff. And so what is required of the entities is to reach out to all the users and to get that agreement done. They're looking at Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene enforcement remedies. And so once all that comes together, then Stephen can take action after that. But I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that that's coming.
Okay.
And we've sent out the pre-treatment item document again to our businesses. We've got, I believe, about 75% response so far. There's only about 10 on the field anyways. So we've got most of them responding, and the issue is in that document, we don't have what they're looking for typically, so.
Right, so I think I don't know if we're talking about two different things. Are you talking about the drug one?
Whatever document that Ken or Stephanie just sent out again.
Yeah.
The other items, I've been aware that there's been some items that are dumping in. It doesn't sound like it's from our end of it. It
It's
sounds
not.
like it's more Hayden, and they
Yeah.
know where it is, so.
Yeah, it is, but just with any entity dealing with chemicals, we just want to make sure that we're in compliance with the HARBS agreement,
Absolutely.
so, yeah.
Anything further on that? Okay. Lift station repair, last item.
Yes, so Stephen, you had asked, I guess in 2019, for some money for lift station repair. So which lift station was that? Miles, okay.
Yeah, we requested 60,000 because it was actually a quote from Crown Pump to replace both pumps in it, upgrade the electronics to match HARBS's requirements, so it would be remotely monitored by them, do everything that would bring it into compliance with HARBS's requirements. We've actually done a couple other requests here and there to get it back up to 60,000, but it's been denied every time, and we were only given 30,000, so we couldn't do the project.
Okay. So right now in your HARBS fund balance, right now in that, how much is in that?
I do not know exactly on the top of my head.
Okay. So I want to work on that. I think the lift station should be looked at sooner than later, and I don't want to wait till it fails.
We can reach out to Crown Pump again and ask for a new updated quote from them.
Okay.
I have no doubt it's
What was their quote the last time?
60,000.
3 years ago, so.
What happens if it fails?
We spend emergency money to repair it because it's that pump, that location takes the entire east side.
Yeah, and my concern is if there's going to be damage because of that, and then we're going to owe all that money.
Because in 2019, we were having significant issues with both pumps. We ended up spending, I think, about $10,000 to $12,000 replacing and repairing both pumps and getting them rebuilt, and it's limping along, but it doesn't. That lift station is extremely old. It's from the original line installations.
Yeah, so I would like to make that a priority.
Okay, we can ask Crown Pump for a new quote and find out what it is.
Good idea.
Okay.
Bill?
I think it's necessary that we keep on top of that.
Okay. Is that it on that? Public comment. Who wishes to speak? Steve, come forward. Jonathan?
Thank you, Steve Anderson, for the record. Commissioners, I'm concerned that a decision is going to be made tomorrow afternoon regarding the luxury lease. And it was my understanding from...
Steve, your mic
You want to press the little button on your mic?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Steve Anderson, for the record. It was my understanding that the commissioners at the last meeting where this was a topic recognized that this wasn't something that they had the time or energy to do a due diligence on, and so it was tossed to the advisory board to essentially do a due diligence, which, you know, even according to Greg this morning, they did not do a due diligence. Now, no one is going to argue that we ought to optimize the value of the land here in Kootenai County. That's not the issue. The issue specifically was, is this lease the right lease to do that? And I don't think anyone has really taken a look at that. In spite of what Bill has represented, there's not been a due diligence on this project. And in fact, I mean, I haven't even seen a third draft. We made a production request to look at the contracts, and the first contract that I looked at was very disturbing from the standpoint that this is a revenue sharing project, and it still had language in it. It was the one that was signed by Mr. Fraser, and it defined development specifically as just defined as promoting the growth or expansion. It doesn't talk about putting any buildings up at any time frame or anything like that. Now, I don't know if that language is still in there, but Stephen's not an attorney, and if the attorney has not looked at this and signed off on it, I think that's a problem. You have no guarantee. There's been no pro forma put forward as far as, you know, looking at the estimated value that you're going to get from that land. There certainly is demand for it, and as I read the contract that was originally signed by Mr. Fraser, he would get for $3,600 a month, essentially the 5 cents an acre or 5 cents a square foot on the 20 acres. He would have the opportunity to hold that open. He could sell his LLC to someone else. They could come in, and another developer doing something similar to this could come in and take over the contract. It just looks like it's not something that's been fully evaluated. And I really appreciated Brett Boyer's questions, because he acknowledged that he hadn't even gotten a contract until he went to the airport office to get a contract so he could read it. It was clear that the advisory board did not know or did not understand what had been asked of them by you as commissioners. And I don't think that Commissioner Brooks cleared anything up when he was asked during the advisory board meeting, you know, is it just a sign off? Are we just going to say we want additional revenue from county land and leave it at that? That's essentially what they came up with. And to me, that's not enough to make a decision. I very much appreciate Commissioner Duncan's questions regarding, you know, the revenue. The things like that are very important, unless you put it out for bid, unless you do due diligence. I don't care if you do due diligence on other things, you know, that's not an excuse for not doing it on something that's new and you know, unusual, kind of an unusual type of a transaction. So, you know, we don't want to always be a fly in the ointment, and you know, but the questions that we're asking are questions that any normal business would ask if they were going to go into a partnership arrangement like this. Now, I think that you've all seen enough other documentation from me, and you can do what you want with it, but the questions are still out there. I hope that they're answered, and I hope that you demand answers before you make a decision in the affirmative tomorrow. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I did want to add that I did read the proposal from Mr. Fraser, and the first 5 acres are not going to be developed with buildings. It's only RV storage. So I just think that we need a little bit more time here to really decide if this is in the best interest of the county, and chances are it could be, but there's some things I think that need to be spelled out a little bit more clear than already are.
How much more time?
depends on, I mean, I thought my questions were going to be answered this last time, so I don't know. I can put an exhaustive list together and have that done, by Wednesday afternoon and submit it to you and Bill or whoever. But this is just different. This is different, and it's not something to be taken into lightly.
Okay, Greg, you say you guys don't have the resources?
No, I don't believe we do. I mean, we don't have the legal resources. Number one, to even make sure the contract's legal.
Well, that can be handled.
Okay.
That's already being looked at.
I guess I'll leave it to the board. What else do we need? I mean, we have an individual that says he's gonna do this. He's getting a below market rate, and with the hope that it's wildly successful and we share a lot of revenue. Now, whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. I mean, I know that Mr. Fraser has stated that he's done some research. He knows how many mini storages there are. He knows the market. He knows what ones he would be competing with. And it's a vacant piece of land. So it's something that the airport could develop and get some revenue. Whether or not it's successful, I personally think it would be, but that's my personal opinion, not the board's.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the other hang-up I got was with Mr. Duggo, where he said he was concerned that the financing was going to come from China. I don't think that really weighs on this decision.
Well, it only does if Chinese government is going to have some kind of oversight over this project if the leasee defaults.
Okay.
So I think that's where he was coming from with that. So I think it's just due diligence to know where the money's coming from because of the tie. I think it'd be a little bit different if they were paying full market rate upfront and we didn't have this additional relationship, I guess, if you will. So once again, I'm not saying that this is a bad project. I'm just saying that if we do not do this due diligence, we're doing a disservice to the taxpayer of Kootenai County.
I guess I refer to Mark. He's the financial guy.
Go ahead, Mark, please.
Well,
Mike,
Your microphone.
Commissioner Duncan, you said that you have concern that if Mr. Fraser were to default on his loan with the bank, that the bank could then be involved. Whether that's a Chinese bank,
Or domestic.
Idaho bank, or whatever, it really doesn't affect because the contract is in place and we'll make on the first 5 acres 13%?
13%, yep.
13% of whatever revenue is generated. Historically speaking, there are no businesses that go into it not to make a profit. So based on my trying to find a storage unit around here, it's a lot of money to try and get storage for an RV unit.
Shortage.
I mean, just an RV unit that's in a not even sheltered.
Sure, and once again, I'm not saying it's not necessarily a good project. I just think that there's a little bit more questions that need to be answered because I'm not the only one that has these concerns. So I just think that it's just more information.
Joan, please.
Well, I was going to piggyback on what Mark was saying. There is a great shortage of storage units in our area, and I would be amazed if this project does not work and provide the profit that's delineated out in the lease itself. And perhaps the missing piece here is legal's analysis of the lease. So I would encourage the commissioners, once we get the response from legal, hopefully that'll give you enough information to move forward.
Okay, Mr. Fraser, you wanted to speak, sir?
Yes, I just had a few comments. The first one was relative to the, I think Commissioner Duncan brought it up, regarding the preliminary due diligence. Someone there indicated that the first 5 acres would be open land, either paved or gravelled and fenced with open storage. that's a very preliminary due diligence. We haven't even completed a third of the due diligence on the corporate side that would be required, because we would like to make some money on this as well. So to mention that it's going to be open storage was a little inappropriate at this time. At a later time, assuming that any of this is approved, I'd like to make a presentation at that time to Stephen and to the commissioners as to exactly how this will be developed in phases or in total. The second thing I wanted to bring up is regarding the lease itself. I think Commissioner Duncan had some concern about if the project's a failure, then what would the county be left with? Well, I think as a function of the lease itself, at least in terms of what I see, it clearly states that any improvements would be removed and the ground would be returned to the county based on the county's approval of taking it back, which would be cleared of any of those improvements. That's my understanding. Regarding banking, I don't know what the issue is with the foreign bank. I do business with Banco Colombia, Bank of Panama, through the Bank of China, Credit Suisse, Bank of Singapore, and the Bank of China directly, and the Royal Bank of Canada. So regardless of which one of those institutions are used, if any, like most of you, I have some dear investor friends that would look forward to probably working on this project as well. We haven't finalized as to where financing will come from, or will it come from simply my partner or not. We look at this property as costing probably $1 million per acre to develop. So from our perspective, we're looking at a $20 million project. How that financing comes to be, at whatever time is appropriate, I'd be more than happy to present that to Stephen and to the commissioners as to how that would be funded and why. So I'm not sure that should be a concern.
Okay.
I also have to apologize, I think, to the commissioners and anybody involved for some early exchange of emails and comments that were made. Unfortunately, I made some comments back that because I felt like I personally was being disparaged based on my military service, my age, and my charitable gift fund that's been in service for over 25 years. And that's disconcerting to someone who's trying to start a project here. And this is not a complex project from what I've been involved in my career. We want to build storage units. We want to do a good job, and we want to satisfy the county. We want to satisfy the airport, and we want to satisfy ourselves. And we have various reasons for that. How our funds will be used ourselves, if there's a profit to be made, is rather personal, but I think I've explained that in some emails. So I personally, when I look at this, it makes me wonder. I sit here today, my counsel, my corporate counsel, has advised me not to respond to this gentleman. And that's, I don't want to do that. I like people. My intentions are honorable. So basically, that's my position.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I have 9:54, meeting adjourned. Thank you.